From the City of Angels, arising from the depths of the West Coast to disseminate intellectual anarchy, comes the James Salazar Media Podcast, where you get your daily dose of pop culture, politics, and futurism. So hold on to your hats and glasses, because this is the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Engage.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Say hello to my little friend.
No, I am your father.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
What's up, savages? And welcome to the James Salazar Media Podcast. I am your host, James Salazar, aka The Media. Hope everyone's doing okay. I hope everyone is doing what they need to be doing, whatever that doing needs to be done. All right. I skipped last week because I was moving and I had an opera. Faust, it went up Saturday. It went well. And thank you for those who came to see. I will be doing another one this weekend, the final performance on Saturday at 2 o'clock p.m. in Pomona. You can go to repertoryoperacompany.com or .net or .org, I don't know, and get tickets there if you're still interested in seeing me sing on stage. So I wanted to get into today talking about Game of Thrones. I know it's a week out, and more than a week out, a week and 2 days. And I really wanted to be thoughtful because everybody's knee-jerk reaction to the finale. I got a lot of people, some fly-by-nighters, some even thoughtful watchers who have been there through the whole 10 years of the show, and all of them telling me how upset they were at the finale. And most of the time I ignore it because most people really don't look at the nuances of the show, and they don't take account of the whole season or the whole series before they make a judgment that the finale was bad. And it's hard to close out any show, let alone the greatest show on earth. So I wanted a week, and I wanted to watch it again, and I wanted to take in the scope of what was going on. And after further reflection, my knee-jerk reaction was the right one. And all these people who are fly-by-night, just beginning to watch, jumping on the bandwagon, plus people who've been watching it for 10 years, their reaction to the ending, I think, was justified. That it was a miss instead of a hit. In saying that, I will talk about what I did like about it. The thing I did like about it, and number one, the finale, that that whole, first order look, where she's standing on the stairs and has all the armies there, and she has this big Targaryen flag draped over the ruins of the castle, and the dragon on the other side. It's a pretty awesome picture. Also, what I liked about it is that when that dragon was in the snow, covered with snow, and lets Jon Snow through to see Daenerys, that was pretty awesome looking. I seen pictures of that in book covers of something similar to that, and I've always said, "Oh, I wish there was a show. I wish there was graphics good enough that it would be able to render the same picture in live action movie or TV show," and it did. It was awesome. I rewind that a couple of times just to see that. It looked amazing. And the third thing I liked about it, there's four things. The highlights of it. Arya becoming pirate Arya. Arya Stark, the pirate, going to unknown lands. That seems like a cool TV show to watch. And maybe if they're smart, they'll do that. Because everybody will watch. The initial reaction, people don't want this to end. But they had to end it, which gives me, not I liked it, but it made sense. That the Game of Thrones technically never ends. So they just took one part of it that has caused war for the last couple hundred years, and that people of blood relations should have the throne. So we had Daenerys believing she should have the throne because her father had it. We had the Baratheons go to war with each other and with other people because they believe it because their brother had it. You got the Lannisters believing they should have it because he was married to a Baratheon, and all the sons, which weren't really there. So it was the Lannisters taking the kingdom. And only the Starks never wanted or coveted the kingdom because they were separate from they didn't have to covet a throne because they had their own throne, a smaller throne, and friends to the kingdom, but independent. But they still believe that a Stark should be at the throne of Winterfell. So this idea that blood relations, lineage, should give you the Iron Throne has caused a lot of wars for the last 10 years. A lot of battles. Same thing with Ramsay and the Boltons. They thought they should be the head of Winterfell because he basically has a stake to the Winterfell throne. So all these people, because of their blood, believe they should have it. So when Tyrion comes in and gives it to Bran, who doesn't want it, but ultimately knew he was going to get it, and made the Lords of Winterfell say, no longer will people have a claim to the throne because of their birthright. But they had to be picked by the kings of Westeros, the families, or the lords of Westeros. It had to be chosen from them. And we know what they poo-pooed democracy. And all that means it's going to play out like it did before. Because the only time there was no killing or backstabbing or undermining is when the Targaryens ruled. And the only reason why they didn't rule, their father went crazy. Until then, they ruled traditionally because they held the power, because of dragons. So now we're going to say nobody has the power, and the lords of the Westeros need to choose. Now, what is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 lords of Westeros. They have to choose. Well, they're going to start allying and betraying each other, or see who can put someone on the throne that's more closer to their values. Now they could put anybody up instead of having a few choices. And who's going to make these people agree? There's always going to be somebody who's going to be the deciding vote. And that person will have the power. Almost like how the Caesars are. In ancient Rome. There was enough backstabbing there. All of these Game of Thrones are just a product and type and taken from how Greek and Roman politics. So I don't think it solves the problem. But it made us feel like there was an end to the Game of Thrones. But the Game of Thrones, I bet, got worse. Because technically, if they wanted peace, probably Daenerys should have taken the throne. She probably would have killed about maybe 100,000 more people. But at the end of it all, she would solidify peace to the whole region. And that she was right. With that dragon, she definitely could have subdued all different lands and broken the wheel of the Game of Thrones. So that made us feel like we had a ending, but it sort of ramps up because you know how American politics is. Imagine American politics without people voting. Well, if it was just the Congress and the Senate voting for the president, that would be it would be more divisive than it is now. That's what I did like about it. What I didn't like about it, number one, Jon killing Daenerys was too on the nose. It was a surprise because it is the most expected, easy, written in thing to do. Have an argument and kill him and kill her. It seemed like the easy way out. And we see now because George R. Martin wrote up to the last season. They had the books to fall upon, and now when they were able to branch out and do their part to see what they could write without him, try to finish this last season. And I guess he gave them an overlying structure, but they're the ones who try to make it happen. You can see how a lot of the things they did seem very typical corporate deciding on what's good and what's bad. Not something surprising as what George R. Martin would write. So I think the biggest flaw of the whole season is that they felt they needed to have heroes. And that's never really been the story. Jon needed to be a hero. Arya needed to be a hero. All these big moments that had to have that had to end, that had to be good. End on an upswing. And it seemed no longer a nuanced and show anymore, and it just seemed at the very end of it all, they went easy. Now, I didn't mind Arya killing the Night King. I didn't. Because I didn't expect it. But, you know, what you give us at the end justifies what you do in the beginning and everything. If you're going to end the Night Walkers there, then something spectacular has to happen towards the end. Because everybody thought the Night Walkers were going to walk on Winterfell. They cut that. They bring Arya as a surprise. Hero. Now let's go here. And Jon Snow, hero. And everybody goes on their way. Sad ending. Well, my friends, that does not seem like the writing of George R. R. Martin. So, with all that said, I generally liked the last season, but how they ended it makes you look back at the rest and say, well, it wasn't so good. They had to do something spectacular to justify them killing the White Walkers so easily. And I know in the story they weren't going to die so easily. They weren't going to die so easily. Looks like it was all for loss. But I mean, we only seen a couple battles with them. So I know I haven't done this segment in a long time, but this is how I would have wrote the finale, and then I would tell you how I would have wrote the season. So we'll do the finale first. Now, I know 2020 is, hindsight is 2020, and it's easy to write, and I acknowledge I've never wrote a book on such a subject or had anything as successful as those books written by George R. R. Martin. I clearly acknowledge this before I start giving my opinion of what I would have wrote. But they're in my head, and now I'm going to give it, and you can tell me if it's a good idea or it's a bad idea. Definitely put it in an email and tell me what you thought of my idea. So this is how I would end the Game of Thrones. Now, if you listened to one before, I gave a little bit of hint of how I would have handled it. But there's two things that'll be very important, right? So we'll go from she destroys everything. I'll keep that front scene that First Order Star Wars beginning where they're all standing there. That looked cool. And I'll keep that snow dragon scene. Definitely keep all these things. And definitely jail Tyrion. But here's the slight difference. Jon Snow has this almost to the same conversation. But he doesn't kill her. In fact, he has the conversations. He says, I love you, but I can't follow, and I can't follow where you're going. She's a little crazy, like her father. And she did burn down. She did say she was going to destroy the wheel, break it. And we know she did that with King's Landing. She destroyed the major pin of the wheel. And there's some remnants of it left, particularly the Lords of Westeros. And, and she burned it all down, to break the will. Plus, she had a lot of resentment, because her family has a claim to the throne, and she probably thinks they could have done something different with her father, but she probably thinks they had a right. This girl, she's very entitled. She thinks she can liberate people, and she's a judge and executioner. So, the mentality on her that has grown is a little tolerance and megalomaniac. And it's hidden under the disguise of altruism of freeing slaves. Unless those slaves does not unless the slaves do not follow what she wants. But they all do it because they love her and she freed them. And this is why she had little tolerance by killing a lot of the lords of the Westeros that she caught on the field. She burned them up, and this is part of the breaking the will. So back to the conversation he was going to have with Jon Snow. He said, "I can't follow you anywhere," and she chalks it up that he is part of this wheel, and that his loyalties will always be to the wheel because he's a Stark. So as she calls Jon Sully to arrest him, she ain't going to let him go. And she tells him she's going to break the will that he's devoted to. And she jumps on a dragon and goes and destroys Winterfell and tells him that. He gets mad, tries to break free, doesn't. Says, don't do this. She does it. She destroys Winterfell. We see this. Great graphics. She just kills Sansa, however you want to say it. And comes back, walks into Tyrion, told him what he's done, and she says, "You're the only one left that's been a part of this journey, and she's killed everybody she can betray him with." Right? Says if she wants to be hand to the king, and she's gonna deal. It's no longer gonna be a hand to the king anymore. She is. He's just an advisor, and she tells him, "Go tell Jon Snow that his family's dead and Winterfell's gone." He goes in there. Has a conversation. I said, "I told you to kill her. And this is what happened. Now look at you, fool." He decides to give him a knife to try to escape with. She says, he's going to kill you for doing this. And he'll say something funny like, he bet I couldn't betray her and I'm going to prove her wrong. This is the only way I could rebel. Yada, yada, yada. He refuses to do that. But he keeps the knife on him. She brings him before the throne, ready to die. There's about 50 Unsullied in there. And they're all having their swords, their spears drawn on him. And he comes into the middle, and the dragon's right behind her in the throne room. And it can fit inside because there's no top. And she told him and tries to justify why she killed Sansa and destroyed Winterfell because it's part of the wheel. And it gives him one more chance to follow. And he said, I will never follow you. And she says, Dracarys, and the dragon burns Jon Snow. And she walks down to see his burning body. Gets closer to the flame. Jon Snow lunges out with the knife and stabs her in the heart because he is Azor Ahai. He's a Prince of Promise and a Targaryen, and anybody who has some kind of purpose doesn't die. So his purpose is not done yet. So obviously his purpose is to kill Daenerys, not screw her. The Unsullied are about to attack Jon Snow, and the dragon's not going to let anybody touch a Targaryen. He burns all 50. Now, Grey Worm ain't there. He's down killing the rest of the people, of catching all the rest of the soldiers and executing them. So he's not there when it happens. But Jon Snow, the dragon, grabs the mother and takes off like it does before. And Jon Snow has to sneak out of there. And and to get his men out of there, he tells Tyrion, "I killed her, and you have to go. They're gonna kill you." And Tyrion goes with him, and they get to their people, and they have this big confrontation where they're all gonna fight each other. And Jon Snow and Grey Worm has a conversation with Grey Worm. We don't have to die here. Only me and you have to die. Only one of us. And that will be it. You can have King's Landing, what's left of it. Or we'll fight to the death. I killed the mother dragons. And let's do this. So they fight. And I struggle in my own story whether Jon dies or he wins. But either way, once. So, yes, this is what happens. I'll settle it here. So he wins this great fight that everybody wants to see between Grey Worm. It's a good, long fight, something like Troy. One with Eric Bana and Brad Pitt. One of my favorite sword movies of ancient times. I always rewatch it. It's really good. They have that battle. Jon wins. And the Unsullied step down and follow Jon. And the Dothraki are done. And they're going to leave. Or maybe they fight. And they all get killed by the Unsullied and Jon's people. Whatever happens. All kings of Westeros come together. All the kings of Westeros come together. And that speech that Tyrion has, Jon gives it because he doesn't want to be king. He's a prince that's promised, but not the king that's promised. And he says there no longer will there be anybody who believes they should have the throne by birthright. So even though there's going to be a lot of backstabbing and little skirmishes, there won't be big wars where the poor people end up dying. Keeps it in the realm of politics and backstabbing and poison and underhanding and small murders as opposed to gigantic battles over. They keep the deceit and the underhandedness within the politics, not having the commoner come and fight a war that they won't reap any benefit of. Jon tells that, he steps down, they vote in Bran. So they vote in Bren because he's non-threatening. Then Sully becomes the King's Guard with under Bren Tar as the head of the King's Guard. Jon goes down, exiles himself, and fulfills his commitment that he made with his father, to his father, Ned Stark, his only father, that he knew, that he's going to fulfill his watch at the wall. Even though it was there to keep out the White Walkers, it ended up just being there to keep out the wildlings. And start to build the wall. Bren declares that Winterfell will be rebuilt, and that Arya should be the Lady of Winterfell. And that Arya says, hey, we need to be independent. But since Winterfell has paid a big price because of because it's almost pretty much destroyed because of the White Walker War at the Battle of Winterfell, plus Daenerys destroying the rest of it, sort of King Landing owes Winterfell a debt, so they're going to rebuild it back to what it was. Jon goes to the wall, leads the wildlings back to their home because they don't want to be there. Nobody wants them there, and they're not comfortable there. And now that the White Walker's threat is gone, they'd rather be home. But he's going to make sure they get there safely. So, then they have that table scene, and Bren says, I'm going to go look, see if I can find the dragon. So Bren closes his eyes in his room, and he sees these flock of crows. They end up catching up the dragon. Daenerys is in his claws, and he's flying north. He flies past the wall, and he flies past the places that were taken over by the Night King that the wildlings were. And they go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the forest. He drops her in this clearing surrounded by trees. And when he lays her there, these fairies start to come out of the trees. And they look at her. They converse with each other with their eyes. And whatever they stuck inside the Night King when he was human, to turn him into a White Walker, they get her and they put it into her heart and create her to become a White Walker again. Because personally, in my mind, since this is what I'm writing, they still think men are trouble, and no matter how bad the White Walkers are, they're still allied to the fairies because the fairies created them. So she raises up, and her eyes are blue. Bren sees this, and he shakes, and then he opens his eyes, and one of his eyes are blue. And then it ends. And that's how I would write it. The season finale. Okay, that's my opinion. Now, let me tell you how I would write the season. This will be much quicker. Number one, everything as it is up until Arya leaves. I like all that happens in the beginning. Arya leaves. So Jon Snow is being held at bay by the dragon. Brienne of Tarth saves Jaime Lannister and says, "You go." Yada yada yada. And she ends up saving his life. He runs off to the Night King. Comes up to Brienne. He finally has him in his grasp. He touches him, and his eyes turn blue. Brienne transforms into a White Walker and stands up and begins to walk. The Night King and the other White Walkers kneel to Brienne, and Brienne becomes the new Night King, or always was supposed to be the Night King, and this was the guy, and the Night King was just supposed to always grab him and make this happen. It is a significant advantage for the White Walkers to have the Third Eye Raven become the new Night King, and maybe it has to happen for them to rule. They summon the dragon, which allows Jon to get away. And as soon as this happens, all the White Walkers start heading towards King Landing as the dragon lands, and Brienne and the Night King jump on the dragon. Now, Daenerys, Mormont dies, and her two dragons clear away. And they finally come back to save her, because I doubt they'll just leave and let her die there. So they come back, they save her. There's two of them. So I don't know. I know the one crashed and the other one got jacked by the all the dead trying to jump up on top of him. But they come back, they fix it, and she gets away. She gets Jon. Jaime Lannister. Nobody knows where Arya is. Nobody knows where Jaime Lannister is. The Hound hid. The whole scene. They're still. The Hound's still alive. Brienne's dead. Daenerys and Jon take off with their dragons, and there's significant Sully left, and King of the North, and the armies of the North, because all what needed to happen was the White Walkers to get Brienne, and like 75% of Winterfell is destroyed anyways in the battle. So I'm just gonna end it there. I want you to review or write me an email about what you thought about how I would end it. And if you can care less, don't do it. But I ain't gonna finish it, because I want 10 reviews and 10 likes, or give me some 5 stars if you like this podcast, and I will finish how I would end the season my way, based on how I wrote the stories this far. I mean, these producers had to write it without George R. Martin, and mine is just as good as theirs. So all I have to say is, you can write me at jamessalazarmedia@gmail.com, or you can follow me on any of my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channels, and type in James Salazar Media, and you can find me there. So just go to the podcast, subscribe, and say you like it. Give me a rating, please, a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps. It definitely helps. And if I can get at least 10 reviews, I will come back and finish off this story. if you're interested. So until then, my friends, till the storms of life come against you and you find yourself on your knees, look at that storm, stand tall, and say what my sensei Jack Burton always says, give me your best shot, strike the music.